Day 24. Welcome back for day 24. My name is Dr. Rivka Edery, and in today's video, we are going to talk about what never came, the void across two registers. Now, the book gives phase 3 one instruction above all else, and I've been holding it back until you were in a position to act on it. Here it is. Pay particular attention to the void. What has consistently not appeared across your 30 sessions is often the most significant data the Practicum has produced. The most significant data the Practicum has produced, not one of the interesting findings, the most significant, and it is made of nothing. It is made of the things that never showed up. Now, you could not have done this work yesterday, and I want you to understand why, because it explains the entire architecture of the last 3 weeks. Until day 21, you had one register, 20 sessions, all run under identical neutral conditions in which you asked nothing and wanted nothing. An absence in that register is just an absence. It is a thing that did not happen while nothing was calling for it. Since day 21, you have a second register, sessions that carry a question, and a question is a demand. It pulls. It calls for something specific to appear, which means you can now do something you have never been able to do in this practice. You can observe a thing failing to appear when it had every reason to. That is not a passive recording. That is an experiment with a manipulation in it. And it produces the strongest evidence this method is capable of generating. Let me be precise about why an absence used to be cheap, because this is the hinge of the whole session. Days 1 through 20. A region of your surface stayed empty. Fine. But nothing was calling for it to fill. No demand was placed on it. Nobody asked it for anything. Of course it did not appear. An absence under conditions of total indifference is barely information at all. It is the default state of everything that is not happening. Days 21 through 30. You asked directly about a thing. You wrote the question in step 0 before the shuffle, which means, and I want you to feel the force of this, every bias in your body was recruited to produce it. Think about what a question does to you. It gives your mind a subject. It makes you want an answer. It tilts the whole apparatus toward the thing you're asking about. Every mechanism of self-deception you've been fighting for 24 days is now pointed at one target, and it is pushing hard for that target to show up. And it still did not come. That absence has survived the test. It survived your wanting. It survived a live demand applied directly by a nervous system that had every motive to comply. Now, recall what you learned on day 12 and notice that it applies exactly here. A finding is not something you noticed. It is something that survived. An absence that survives a direct question is a finding. An absence under neutral conditions is a fact, and a much weaker one. The two are not the same kind of object, and the whole of today is about keeping them apart. Here's the sentence. Read it slowly, because it is the most rigorous thing in the book, and it took me a long time to be able to say this precisely. Consistency in the void is not simply absent every day. It is absent under the conditions where it had every reason to appear. Every clause is load-bearing. Absent every day. That is the naive definition, and it is what almost everyone means by a consistent void. It counts. It tallies. It says, this corner was empty 24 times. And it is nearly worthless on its own because it has not asked the question that matters. Was anything ever pulling for that corner to fill? Absent under the conditions where it had every reason to appear, that is the real definition. It does not count days. It asks about pressure. It asks whether the absence has ever been tested. So an absence that survives a direct question is worth more than 100 quiet ones. 100 quiet absences tell you what your field does when nothing is being asked of it. That is a baseline, and it is valuable, and you spend 20 days building it. One absence that persisted under direct interrogation tells you something the baseline never could, that the thing is not there even when you need it to be. That is the difference between a description and a finding. Let me lay this out properly, because your log now has 2 registers, and every signal in it falls into one of 4 cells. For any given signal, an image, a card, a zone that fills it, a somatic response, ask 2 questions. Did it appear in the neutral phase? And does it appear now when you are asking questions? 4 combinations. Absent, absent. It never appeared under any condition. Not when you wanted nothing, and not when you asked directly. The spatial site book's reading. The field is telling you this does not belong here, regardless of what you ask. That is the strongest void data you will ever have, and it is the top left cell. Present absent. It came freely when you wanted nothing, and it vanished once your questions began. The spatial site book is precise. The question itself may be steering the field away from it. Sit with how strange and how important that is. It means your asking has consequences. It means a question is not just neutral. It's an intervention, and it can push something out of view. And you could only ever have detected this by having 20 days of not asking to compare against. Absent present. It never came unbidden. It only started appearing once you called for it. Now, the book does not name this cell. So let me be honest about it, because it is the one thing that should worry you. Something that only appears when you ask for it is exactly what wanting looks like from the inside. That is not necessarily a finding. That may simply be you producing what you requested. Treat this cell with maximum suspicion. It is the cell where the wallpaper face lives. And present. It arrives whether or not you ask, the most robust presence in your log. And for void analysis, the least interesting, because it is not an absence at all. 2 cells are signal. One is a warning, one is a background. I want to spend real time on the cell the book does not name, because it is the one that is going to happen to you this week, and it is the one that will feel most like a breakthrough. Here is the shape of it. 20 days of silence. Nothing about him. He never appeared in the geometry, not once in 20 neutral sessions. Then you ask about him. Step 0. His name in plain language before the shuffle. And there he is in the cluster, in the void, in the isolate holding its distance every night this week. And you will think, the field is answering me. Stop. Look at what actually happened. You supplied a subject, and a mind that has been supplied with a subject makes everything relate to it. I told you this would happen on day 21, and here it is, arriving exactly on schedule. That is not the field responding. That is the most likely explanation in the world. You gave your perception a target, and your perception obliged. And here's the cruelty of it. This is the cell that produces the strongest feeling of contact. It is vivid. It is specific. It is emotionally charged because it is about the thing you actually care about. Every session this week has felt more alive than the 20 that came before. The strongest feeling cell is the weakest evidenced one. That is not a coincidence. It feels strong precisely because you are invested, and your investment is the alternative explanation for everything you're seeing. So how do you test it? You already know. Day 11, day 12, write the disconfirmation. Then stop asking about him for 3 sessions. Go back to neutral and see whether he stays. If he vanishes, the moment you stop calling, he was never in the field. He was in you, in your mind, in the parts of your mind. And you will have found that out for the price of 3 sessions, which is the cheapest lesson available to you. And now the other side. The cell that is worth everything. You asked directly. You wrote the question in step 0. You wanted an answer. You were, if you were honest, hoping for a particular one. Your whole apparatus was tilted toward producing it, and it did not come. Not that night, not the next one, not once. The Spatial Psy book. A signal that never appeared in any session is the field telling you it does not belong here, regardless of what you ask. Now, I want to be careful here, and I want you to notice me being careful. I'm not telling you that the universe has sent you a message. I am not claiming the field is an oracle that has issued a verdict. I do not know what the field is, and neither do you, and neither does anyone. And I have not asked you to believe anything about it for 24 days, and I'm not going to start now. Here's what I can say, and it is narrower and much stronger. Under conditions specifically designed to produce this thing, with your attention aimed at it, your wanting engaged, your whole biased apparatus recruited, it did not appear. That is a fact about your practice obtained under adversarial conditions, and it's very difficult to explain away. And that is what an honest finding sounds like. Not the cards told me, but I tried to make it come with every advantage on my side, and it would not come. That is the strongest thing this method can ever hand you. It is made of nothing, and it survived.